Well, welcome to the April meeting of the Mississippi Park Wildlife Fisheries and Park Commission. We're glad that everyone's joined us. This is an unusual time, and so we're meeting in an unusual way, so to speak. And we probably, let's have an opening prayer, and then Sam, would it be wise to have a roll call of commissioners on for the record?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, is Robert with us?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Robert, go ahead and give us a prayer, please, sir.
Pray with me, please. Lord, you are our refuge and our strength, an ever-present helper in the time of trouble. Be with us, O Lord, as we go through this time of trial, as the nation, indeed the world, struggle with this pandemic known as COVID-19. Give us the strength of our faith to know that we should be still and know that you are God. Let our peace and wisdom, O God, rule the day rather than fear and panic. And, O Lord, we ask that you would be with our leaders at the national, state, and local level as they struggle to make decisions in the service of your people and provide the best possible care. Father, we pray for those health care workers and those first responders that are on the front line battling this dreaded disease. And, oh God, we know that you are the great physician, and we know that all things rest in your care. Be with us individually and collectively. To those that are infected, oh God, be with them in that struggle. For those who have transitioned, be with their family, oh God, and give them peace. And Lord, as we attend to the affairs of this day, we ask that you would superintend over this proceeding, that the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart will be acceptable in your sight. Oh Lord, you are our strength and redeemer. In the name of Jesus the Christ, we pray. Amen.
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 Okay, let's have a roll call on the commissioners. So we have Commissioner Costa with us.
Yes, sir. Present.
Commissioner Wagner.
Present.
Taylor.
Present.
Okay, and Munger.
Yes, sir. I'm here too.
Who else do we have join us, Sam, from your department we need to know of? Have our attorney on the board, on the phone?
We have the attorney on, Mr. Cook.
I'm here.
Y'all introduce yourself.
Okay, well, I'm
Robert
Scott
Cook.
Cook. Go ahead. And do you want to introduce anybody else, Sam, or not?
Well, we're going to have the presenters, which will come up and give a presentation as we go through the agenda.
All right, are we ready to move forward then?
We are.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the February 17th meeting?
Yes, I move
Okay.
to be adopted. Yeah.
Okay, entertain a motion. Munger.
I'll second.
So
Second by Wagner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? No opposition. Okay. Today's agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at today's agenda, and is there any changes?
There are some changes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, what do we have?
On your agenda under 6, Wildlife Bureau, do you have turkey season update and state turkey population study on your agenda? If not, we need to add that.
Maybe after Migratory Bird Framework.
Be after Migratory Bird Framework selection. That'll be presented by Adam Butler.
Okay.
Then under other business, we're going to have a law enforcement update, law enforcement activities over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and also discuss lands affected by floodwaters.
All right, that sounds good. Any objections to any of that? Any objections to changing today's agenda?
I move we accept the agenda with the changes.
And second?
Second. Robert.
Who seconded it?
Robert Taylor.
Robert Taylor. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So we've changed today's agenda. Okay. How about public comments?
We have none. written or oral.
Okay. All right, how about we move into license sales?
Okay. Jason Thompson.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. The commission report for the month of March shows that the overall revenue from hunting and fishing license sales is down 1% compared to last year. Revenue generated from resident license sales is up $28,000 versus this time last year. A couple of privileges to note: the resident small game freshwater fishing license is up 8%, the 3-day freshwater fishing up 40%, and the WMA user permits are up 7%. Non-resident license sales are down 2%. However, the non-resident annual freshwater fishing is up 4%. The 1-day freshwater is up 13%. And both of the fall turkey and spring turkey permits are up compared to last fiscal year. The permit category, sales are down 8%, and the revenue from lifetime license sales are down 2%. At the bottom of your summary report, I'll highlight two things. We have over 25,000 WMA app downloads. 19,000 of them are iOS users. 6,000 are Android users. And license packages. We began selling them on May the 10th, 2019. As of April the 7th, we've sold 7,006 packages.
Okay, any questions for Jason?
Jason,
Yes, sir.
one more time, it is amazing when you report how good the reports are versus when Michael does it.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you.
Well, it was a good report, and we had folks out fishing for sure, and also out looking for turkeys during these hard times.
Right, right.
They're enjoying outdoor recreation, pass their time away.
Hey, Sam, just a question. How many, do we know how many more out-of-state people are coming during this time? Or is it just more in-state people, you think, using more?
I think we had an increase in, I know in state users, but I'm not sure about non-residents, but it's in that report. I just missed. I don't know. Jason, are you still there?
Yes, sir, I am.
How did the non-resident license look as far as during turkey season?
So both the fall and spring turkey permits for non-residents, they were up compared to last year. So
Good.
we did really good.
That's
Yeah,
good.
Jason, we were just kind of speculating, wondering if because of the COVID-19, both locals were out more, and then Mississippi, out-of-state people because our season opened earlier, maybe some more of them came too.
That's right.
Sam,
Okay, thank you.
Sam, before we leave fishing, whatnot, just for the record, what are the current rules in place we have for our state lakes, rivers, Corps of Engineer reservoir?
All our state lakes are closed by the governor's order, of course. Following that, the state park lakes are closed. The rivers are open, and the core lakes are open.
Okay, just for the record. Okay, how about we move into wildlife?
Okay. Russ?
Is there any more fishery stuff?
Fisheries is supposed to be fun.
You skipped fisheries, Copeland.
I see it. Sorry. I got it.
Larry, you're trying to skip Larry again, Coopwood.
I know it. I know it.
I had
Larry,
stepped up,
Larry,
I
don't get
stepped
your
up and
feelings
then
hurt.
sat back down.
I know. I got you. Sorry.
That's okay. Good morning.
You're trying to give Larry some exercise there, it looks like.
I'm getting plenty of exercise.
You look better on camera than you do in person.
Well, I appreciate that. I can't say the same. All right.
We just all one big family, aren't we?
I've got 3 rules for your consideration today. These will be proposed rules. These are minor, what we consider minor changes or recommendations to our 3 rules. The first rule is Rule 1.4, statewide creel limits. we're making a slight change to the current slot limit at Lake Monroe. Number one, it puts it in agreement with a nearby state lake, Lake Lamar Bruce, so it really helps us with angler clarification. Plus, it allows those anglers at Lake Monroe to keep a few more fish of a certain size. If we move quickly to Rule 2.1, state fishing lakes, again, we have two recommendations, basically for clarification for free fishing weekend, and we wanted to add Simpson County Lake to the lakes that are currently, state lakes that are currently closed for renovation. As you know, Lake Mary Crawford, you closed last year. We were able to renovate. We're currently renovating it. And Simpson County Lake, down Highway 49, we probably are cutting the levee this week to completely drain it. We're having to do some dam rehabs. So basically, those are the only two minor changes for state fishing lakes. And the last rule is Rule 2.2, our Community Fishing Assistance Program lakes. We have one recommendation, just to simply put a statement in there to allow the cooperators to close their waters or waive the use rules for special events if they provide us 30-day written notice. And the reason we wanted this in the rule, we wanted to cite something for our cooperators to see, because we've had this request in the past from our cooperators to waive certain rules that they have in place. So we wanted to put that in rule and essentially give them a document that we could reference. So 3 rules for your consideration for proposed changes, very minor changes to each rule.
Any discussion?
Any questions for me?
All right, why don't somebody make a motion and.
So moved.
Second.
Wagner and Munger did the second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Larry. All
Chairman,
right.
If I
Now,
could,
I've got my glasses on.
Chairman, if I could ask one question before we leave the state lakes.
All right, go ahead.
Dr. Polis, the reopening of the state lakes and those waters, does that typically, if we end the shelter-in-place order,
unknown participant is now joining.
if we ended on the time frame that he's saying today, will that open those back up because of the lifting of that shelter-in order, or is it totally separate?
No, it was inclusive in his original order. And
Okay.
so what we would ask for consideration would be if he opens the state up a little more and people can get out, we'd like to have the state lakes open too.
Right.
So we would have to make that request to the governor.
Okay. Okay.
Any more questions, y'all?
Yeah, it would seem like, I mean, fishing is something that social distancing can be practiced, so maybe we sure should be aware of that, and maybe make requests to the governor, maybe at some point he consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main concern was more than 10 people getting on a boat, which you could, design it where you could control that, plus people gathering up on sandbars, which you would have to, eliminate that also if you opened up state fishing lakes.
That's true. I was just thinking about bass fishing, you have one guy at the front of the boat and one at the back.
Yeah.
So you can
Absolutely, you could do that.
apart,
Yes, you could do that easily.
You can't go running out there 70 miles an hour with a guy sitting on front though, so.
No.
Yeah, hopefully it'll all open up soon. We'll see. We should just watch that. Thanks.
Any more comments? All right, with that, let's move on to the Wildlife Bureau and have Russ give us a report.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll see on your agenda here, we have several items to propose to you today. One, we'll begin with our WPA regulations for the 2020-2021 season. You have in your packet there, we'll begin there on page 2 with a summary of those changes or clarifications that we'll present to you for consideration.
Shut down.
What we need to do, Chip?
Hold on 1 second.
Out how to get him to dial back in.
Okay.
Just going to be a moment right here. We're not going to just not say much. Just hang on just a second while they work on it. There we go. Russ, you back online?
I believe so.
There we go.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, Russ, you want to move forward? Start over?
Yes, sir. All right, so on your handout there, page 2, you'll see we have a summary of WMA regulations, changes or clarifications to some of the language. Chairman Cooperwood, I'll be glad to go through those individually, or if you just want to take, or if you have questions on specific ones, however you prefer me to do that.
I've already looked over them. I don't have any questions. Does anybody, you want to, Mr. Taylor, did you have a question on any of these? Or is that the new thing we're going to talk about?
No, I don't have any questions on the WMA regulations.
And Russ, I do have a question on the WMAs, but not for WMAs, but on the fall arrest systems, we require tree saddle users, whatever, and it's probably not just for WMAs, but everywhere to require safety belts. But we don't have that in our regulations anywhere else, do we?
So under the basics, we were going to add tree saddle to the basics. They're not included in there now. They are becoming a popular way to hunt, and so we're going to include those, and then include that they have to be in a fall arrest system while they're using the tree saddle, as with any other stand.
Do we require fall arrest systems for climbing stands or for lock-on stands or anything else?
Yes, sir.
We do? Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
And so we require that. My question was, we require them WMAs, but we don't have any statewide regulation or encouragement. I know we encourage it for people to use it on private lands or other places. That was my question.
Chief, is not required on private lands, correct? That's correct. It's not required on private lands.
Okay. That's just something that, I don't know. It certainly is a safety thing, so something to consider for the future. Okay, thank you, Russ.
Yes, sir.
Russ, Mr. Chairman, Russ, will the bicycle language be discussed after this or during this discussion now? The electric bicycle on WMAs.
I'll talk about it now while we're on it.
Yeah.
Sure. So currently, there is no specific language related to electric bicycles. It says that all motorized vehicles have to be on designated trails. So we have proposed language that would allow electric bicycles to be used for purposes of hunting and fishing access, not just to retrieve harvested game, but electric bicycles could be used on designated roads and trails for hunting and fishing access.
I think great idea.
And that's, yeah, and that's beyond where an ATV or UTV would be allowed except for retrieval of wildlife.
That's correct. Currently, ATVs and UTVs on the majority of WMAs are for retrieval of game only, but this would allow them to be used, electric bikes to be used on those trails, again, for hunting access, as well as retrieval of game if you could use it.
Okay.
Any more
Russ,
comments?
we've seen a lot more electric bicycles being used, like quad cat, those kind of things.
I don't know the numbers there on WMAs, but I do think they are becoming increasingly popular, and you would see some use, especially if this was allowed on WMAs.
They are a good low impact kind of way to access property like that.
Sure.
It'll be a good opportunity for our older hunters and fishers.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Sam, how do you want to handle all this?
Well, what we can do is adopt the WMA regulations and move forward on the next topic, which would be,
I'll make a motion that we adopt staff recommendations on the WMA regulations.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
The next section there you'll see on page 3 of your handout is Rule 1.5, and that's hunting during high water. So currently there are 4 zones that are during the winter time, during deer hunting season. There's an automatic closure on those when the river reaches certain stages on certain gauges. But that sunsets on February the 1st, and currently there is no language that would speak specifically to turkey season. So we are proposing to add dates in there that would have an automatic closure along Mississippi River when it reaches flood stage at certain gauges. So you'll see there on page 3, the amended language would read, "No person shall take, catch, or kill, or attempt to take, catch, or kill wild turkeys between March 1 and May 1, or any wild bird or wild animal except waterfowl between October 1 and February 1 on lands in each of the 4 designated flood zones along the Mississippi River when flood stage is reached." So it would be an automatic closure now during turkey season when flood stage is reached in any of those 4 zones.
Russ, question, how is flood stage defined? Is there a specific definition that's clear?
Yes, sir. In the rule, it is the flood stage that is specific to those gauges. So like in Vicksburg at 43 feet, or like Arkansas City or other gauges, it's the flood stage for those specific gauges.
Oh, good. Okay. So there's no ambiguity. Like I think the Helena gauge, Arkansas City, Vicksburg.
That's correct.
Those are defined by the Corps of Engineers, or so.
Correct.
So if law enforcement was out there and it was clearly above flood stage, then they wouldn't have any ambiguity then, right?
That's correct. It states that in the rule, it states the gauge that is flood stage.
Yes, I read that. I saw that.
Hey, Russ, I got one question. What does this do with hog hunting?
That would still fall under,
It says wild, any wild animal, so that's the reason I asked, just the letters.
yes, this would, for the turkey
The way it's
season-
written.
Yeah, for the way
Yeah.
it's written, that, so in the wintertime, that would impact wild hog hunting. The
Yeah, that's
way
not
that-
your, but that's not your intention, is it, to eliminate the, I mean, we want to get rid of them.
Right.
For this
You can say
proposal,
except hogs and waterfowl.
that's for wintertime. For this proposal, it'd be just for wild turkeys. For the May 1, or from March 1 through May 1, it only speaks specifically to wild turkeys.
No, it says, or any wild bird or wild animal, except waterfowl.
You could change the language to say except hogs and waterfowl or
Yeah,
predators.
exclude hogs.
We already accept waterfowl, so you could accept hogs and waterfowl. So obviously, people can't hunt waterfowl in flooded timber and things like that. And if you had hogs on high ground, then people could do that too, maybe help control the hogs.
Sam?
Well, I think we can change that, just like it's suggested by two commissioners, to accept the hogs in the language as we do waterfowl. Unless, Russ, there's another intent to keep any hunting on levees, but that would be understood.
Correct, there's no hunting from levees during that time, so.
So what we need to do is not include hogs in this. You need to accept hogs along with waterfowl.
Except waterfowl and wild hog.
Except waterfowl, wild hogs.
Exclude, yeah.
Okay, we can amend that.
You want to amend that now?
Yeah, I would make the motion that we amend that, and I would
Second.
move that we do that motion as amended.
Second.
Just for game or permit,
Yeah.
so they could.
Okay, so we've made a motion to change that rule and also to accept that rule, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Munger made the second.
Munger made the motion, I made the, Robert, Taylor made the second.
Okay? Are we ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
All right, all in favor? Oops. Hold on. Russ, go ahead.
Chief Adcock has a statement.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I think one thing we got to remember that we got to be careful of is if we open this wide open to hunting hogs during flooded, you got to remember when we have this, these floods and these deer get trapped on these high areas, and then you allow hog hunting on those areas, then you're creating an issue just like we had on the Vicksburg levees back during the last flood, where people were constantly running those deer back into the water. And I
That's
think
a
we gotta
great
think
point.
about that before we do this.
All right, then Sam, what? Maybe we should table this for just a moment and let's move on. Let's give this a little bit more thought because Chief just made an excellent point that had.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it is a good point, but could you say it by permit? In other words, I know that we do issue some permits to do that. Hog hunting could be done by permit.
It's going to be the same thing. I mean, you're
Well,
going to
I
have
think we did some
people.
permits. I mean, we did some permits in certain areas, you know, to eradicate.
The problem you're still gonna have, Commissioner, is that, the deer are still gonna be
You're right.
pushed in those areas too, even though you have a hog permit. They could take advantage of the deer.
Sam,
So we need to work on that language.
Yeah,
Well,
that's-
I would say let's table this for the moment. Let staff and y'all work on that and we revisit it at a special meeting or the next meeting or whatever. Would that be okay?
That'd be great.
And I just want to tip my hat to Chief there because we're about to pass it. I don't think rush through it real quick, didn't even think about it. So I thank you so much. So why don't we move on, Russ, now to the next deal right here.
Okay, next section there, you'll see whitetail deer season. So several things here for this particular season. first is related to chronic wasting disease. To give you just a brief update on CWD from this past season, as of today, we have 8,079 samples that we've collected since July 1 of 2019. About 4,100 of those have been bucks, about 3,500 of those have been does. So far, during the course of the hunting season, we did detect 35 additional CWD positive deer. 26 of those came from Benton County, 9 of those came from Marshall County. So again, we did end the hunting season with about 8,000 in samples. So now we have statewide, we have 54 CWD positive deer that have been detected. In our neighboring state of Tennessee, they have detected over 650 additional positive animals since the beginning of hunting season. So again, that brings our statewide total to 54, and all of those have been from Benton and Marshall County for this season. So for CWD, for the upcoming season, we have a couple of proposals to present to you. The first would be in an effort to allow additional harvest of animals in areas where we have CWD positive animals. So you'll see there in the proposal that we would, in a 3-mile radius around any positive animal, we propose that we have either sex management tags that would be part of our Deer Management Assistance Program. A lot of people know it as DMAP. We would we would issue those CWD management tags to private landowners in a 3-mile radius of any positive animal. They have to apply for that and go through the process to get those tags. But then they would be allowed to harvest those animals inside of from October 1 to the end of deer season. And again, that would allow additional harvest to reduce those densities in areas where we know that we have positive animals, and we know that as an effective means to reduce deer populations. Those tags would have to be affixed to the animal before it is moved, and all of those harvested deer must be submitted for CWD testing, and all of those properties that receive tags do have to report that harvest by March 1 of the following year. So again, this would be an effort to, again, allow additional harvest, reduce those densities around the positive areas, and provide further opportunity for those private lands in those areas. Any questions about that? Again, this would be part of our DMAP program.
Any comments or questions?
Good plan.
All right. No further discussion. Are we ready to vote on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Munger, second.
I'll second, Mr. Robert.
Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. All right, Russ.
All right, second part of that is mandatory CWD sampling. So for the extended season this year in February in the North Mississippi zone, we did require mandatory submission of CWD samples during that special 2-day weekend. That was very well received by hunters up there. We received over 600 additional samples, which was a positive thing. So for this year, we would like to propose 3 mandatory CWD sample submission weekends. And again, this is an effort to collect samples. This is an effort to somewhat truncate our sampling. It's spread out across the entire season. And this is a way for us to collect a larger volume of samples in a short time frame, which we think would be beneficial for not only hunters, but for staff effort as well. So what we propose is, so let's begin in the North Mississippi and Issaquena zones, the established CWD management zones. That would be Saturday and Sunday, November 21st and 22nd. So that'd be an opening weekend of gun season. Any harvested deer on those 2 days would have to be submitted for CWD sample testing. They can bring those to established freezer locations, or they can bring them to physical check stations. So any means that they desire to submit those, they can do that, again, whether it's freezers or check stations. So that would be opening weekend of gun season for those two zones. The second sample weekend would be for the southwest region, which would be Adams, Emmett, Franklin, Jefferson, Lawrence, Lincoln, Pike, Walthall, and Wilkinson counties. That would be on January the 2nd and 3rd. That's a high traffic weekend for deer harvest. And so we would have the same process there. It'd be freezers or check-in stations. Excuse me. And then the third weekend would be the southeast region. That would be January 16th and 17th. Again, a high traffic weekend for deer harvest in the southeast counties of Mississippi. Again, same process. They can bring it by a physical check station or utilize a freezer location for that 2-day Saturday, Sunday mandatory weekend. So again, this is an effort to collect further samples in areas where we are needing samples, particularly in South Mississippi. We have been somewhat deficient in samples for the past couple of seasons, so this would be a great way for us to collect further samples, and again, do that in a short time frame that we think would be beneficial for all parties.
Russ, question, these be for private lands and public?
That's correct.
And if they're on DMAP, how would that work? Would they would still take it? They could, or they had a biologist they could sample, they could do it, or how would that work?
Yes, so some DMAP clubs are collecting their own samples, or they have a biologist that is doing that. So they can follow that same process. They can collect them and submit those samples. They can just submit the sample. They don't have to bring the deer head or the deer. They can have someone or their biologist submit those samples for them.
And what if they killed a Boone and Crockett buck that weekend? What would they do?
So we have worked in the past several seasons with taxidermists. So if they wanted to have that deer mounted, we can work with them or their taxidermist to get that sample without impacting their cape or their head.
So they just have to take it to a taxidermist that's certified or that lets you know somehow? That's
correct. We've talked through that process. Actually, that hunter can get a CWD sample card, and as long as they have the card in their possession and verify that with their taxidermist, then that's fine. They don't have to submit it that day. Just have that sample card with them, and we will get the sample at a later date. And they can get the sample card their taxidermist will have the sample cards, or they can pick it up at a freezer.
Russ, I got one question. So this is obviously a bigger sample area than the CWD zone, so it's not tied to the CWD zone. And therefore, if we change or make any changes to the CWD zones, you can still have a broader sampling base than just the CWD zones.
That's right. This would give us basically a statewide base for sample collection.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? Any more questions?
I move motion. This is Taylor. I make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second?
Second.
That was Wagner.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, the next thing on deer is for the South Delta Zone for this past season. The deer season there was October the 15th through January 31, and the bag limits were 2 bucks and 2 does. And so that was because of the prolonged flooding in the South Delta in 2019. And again, we're set up this year. Mississippi River is at 50 feet. The backwater is at 95 plus feet and has been for a number of months. And it looks like that will continue on through at least a portion of May. We don't really know how far beyond looking at projections just yet. So there, and looking at some of our data that we have collected through camera data and through hunter observation, that deer herd was impacted. The fawn crop was significantly impacted from 2019. So there's been questions about should there be continued alteration of bag limits for the South Delta. So in the discussions with staff as well as private landowners from that region, we would propose a full-length season, but we do feel like an adjustment to the bag limits for another season would be appropriate. And so you'll see there in proposal that we would propose a 2 buck and 2 doe bag limit for private lands. And then on the public lands that are open, that don't have draw hunts, we would propose a 2 buck and 1 doe bag limit for places like Sunflower, Lake George, and Shipland WMAs. So again, private lands would be 2 bucks and 2 does, and then the public lands with no draw hunts, it would be 2 bucks and 1 doe.
Comments, discussion? Anybody?
I'll move we accept staff recommendation.
All right, second, that was Wagner. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, and I'll vote, let's vote. All for? All right, any opposition? Motion carries.
Final thing for Rule 2.2 under whitetail deer, Chairman Coop would, each year the dates have to be adjusted just based on the calendar, and so this year opening day would fall back to November 21st, and so we would just need you to approve the alteration of those season dates for Rule 2.2 deer seasons and bag limits.
All right, any comments, discussion? All right. Who's gonna make a motion? All right, what about a second? Was Wagner, what about a second? Second?
I'll second.
All right, Cosser, Commissioner Cosser. All vote yea?
Yeah.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Thank you, Chairman Cooperwood. I'm going to yield my time to Ricky Flint to present the Alligator Rules for 2021.
Thank you, Russ.
Good morning, Commissioners, Dr. Polis, Mr. Cook. It's a pleasure to be here before you today to present to you the admin rules for the most exciting hunting opportunity that we offer in the state of Mississippi, and that is the alligator season, private lands and public waters, rules 5.2 and 5.3. You should have before you a list of very minute changes. Basically, there are no major changes whatsoever to either season. First, let me address 5.2, the private lands alligator season. In Part K, L, and M, we are clarifying there, once again, that lifetime licenses are considered a combination hunting license. Therefore, permit holders and hunting assistants do not have to purchase an additional combination hunting fishing license. We're doing the same thing in 5.3. As y'all remember, 2 years ago, this will be the third year that we have offered an exemption to lifetime license holders as far as having to buy an additional all-game hunting license if they are drawn for a permit or if they're participating as an assistant. So then going to 5.3, public waters, we are clarifying that no other landlocked lakes are open to alligator hunting except those specifically listed. For whatever reason, this continues to be an issue with some of the people that are not reading the regulations clearly, that only those landlocked lakes that are listed specifically are the only ones that are open as far as a public waterway. We also are going to add that Moon Lake in Coahoma County will be an additional open lake for alligator hunting in the northwest zone. And then Part F, 1B, 2A, I, and 2, clarifies again that lifetime license holders are allowed to hunt without having to purchase an additional all-game hunting license. So overall, there are no changes to the 7 public water hunting zones or their boundaries, and I'm proposing no changes in the number of permits, with a total of 960 total permits available. Same thing as last year in each zone. And I can report to you, we have the 2019 alligator season summary report ready, available to issue to you. And last year, 2019, we had 922 alligators harvested on public waters. That's the second highest harvest we've had, the highest being in 2015. And that was 982 alligators. And revenue from the 2019 alligator hunting season was $275,000.
Hey, Ricky, this is Billy Wagner.
Yes, sir.
Billy's cutting out. Start over, Billy.
Those all. Where's that list?
Where's the list? Is that what you asked?
There's a list in there.
It's in the full regulations.
Clarifying about the landlocked. I was wondering where's the list? Yeah.
Okay, the list of those lakes are listed in the rule. That would be Part A, subsection 4D. That's where we list each individual public lake that is open for alligator hunting on a public waters permit.
So you have a problem where you just like what type of lakes were they to the places you're talking about?
Those lakes generally are considered public lakes with public access through a public boat ramp that a government entity operates. We have tried not to open any lakes, though they may be public, and have a public boat ramp there. If it's privately owned, it presents a problem that a private landowner can close access to a lake at will. And if we have a lake open in admin rule stating that it's open and there is no other public access, it can create some problems. And we've come near to those types of situations before. So it's been our default rule that we only open up state lakes that are, or public water lakes that have public access by a government entity like an MDWFP ramp.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered.
Any more comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. This is Polis. I'd like to ask, Moon Lake's has a special place in my heart. So anytime we discuss doing something at Moon Lake, I'd like to make sure that the folks that use Moon Lake and live at Moon Lake are for alligator season there.
Good point.
We did make contact with, was that Megan's father? Randy Sewell, thank you. And addressed it with him as being a entity who would be knowledgeable of the public's thoughts up there, and he absolutely blessed the opportunity to open up alligator hunting opportunity on Moon Lake.
We also have a silver carp problem at Moon Lake. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would alligators help control silver carp?
I don't know that anything helps control them, but I can say at least this, that alligators readily consume Asian carp.
Okay. So we do need some alligators left in Moon Lake to help with the Asian carp.
They would consume some Asian carp while they're there.
So what's the quota going to come out of Moon Lake? Do you have a quota that you would harvest out of Moon Lake?
The northwest zone only has 40 permits. It is our least impacted zone as far as the 7 alligator hunting zones. That would be one of, I think there's only one other state lake or public lake open in the northwest zone. I would say that impact would be minimal at best. As far as a quota for the lake, that would be hard to enforce, knowing that a permit holder for a northwest zone could go to any of the public waterways within that zone.
But are you saying that it's possibility of them harvesting 40 alligators out of Moon Lake?
I would say it's possible.
Did we take that in consideration? You said only on one other location.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at my list of the other zones. Let me see. I don't have it.
Sam, while he's looking, I've got a comment. Part of Moon Lake is really becoming a neighborhood development. Do you know what I'm talking about, that end?
Right.
Is there any reason we would want to not harvest alligators in that region of the lake?
No, I'm not saying that we would stop harvest. I just was concerned that all of
in that part of the lake, would we not? I mean, I just wonder, with people at 1 o'clock at night, the phones up and down the lake right there, and people are shooting alligators, how would that affect things? I don't know. I'm just tossing that out, because to me, that's part of that lake is a little bit different than a lot of these other lakes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. I don't think, Ricky, we have not zoned off any part of Moon Lake. They can harvest alligators the total area of Moon Lake. Is that correct?
The admin rule states specifically that no alligator may be dispatched within 100 yards of any residence, any public boat ramp, or building or occupied campsite. So, and that's statewide. So in that regard, that even if a person were to capture an alligator in a populated area near a home, by admin rule, legally, they could not dispatch it unless they were at least 100 yards away. But if it's a problematic situation, then it complicates things with the residents up there. There's no harm. We haven't had any specific requests to open it. It's just been my goal every year to search the available public lakes that have public access and open up as many of those as possible.
Sam, my advice would be we've talked to one person, which is fine. I think you might want to talk to Willis Fraser and some of those people that are in that long neighborhood there,
I agree.
And all that. Because a lot of people are moving from Clarksdale to that development up and down Moon Lake, I mean, it's a real neighborhood with children and all kind of stuff. Just my advice. I wonder if you shouldn't maybe have a couple more meetings on this, or one big one with everybody, and get their thoughts before we just turn this loose.
I agree. I think we need maybe a formal letter, if that Mr. Sewell represents an association that includes all neighbors in and on that lake, then that would help us say that this would be a request by most everybody that lives there, if not all people.
Why don't we do that, Ricky? Let's handle Moon Lake that way just for the moment. Does that be okay?
Sure.
Anybody? Any other commissioners against that?
Oh, that's good. So we just tabled that one line item until further review, and
that's what my recommendation would be for the moment. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that'd be correct. Mr. Chairman,
I would make that motion that we accept staff recommendations with the exception of Moon Lake, and table that for further review.
Okay, I think that's wise. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That was Wagner. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. Y'all will write that up as we just carried it. Okay, what else we got? Is that the end of your report, Ricky?
That's the end of my part. I think Houston Havens is coming with a waterfowl portion.
Before we get into that, Sam, we got a little bit turned around here. We were talking about Rule 5.2 and 5.3.
Right, correct.
So 5.3, is that what we are changing? We just voted on?
5.3, yes, that's correct.
All right, so you
need to
go back
I
on
think
five.
Robert's motion covered that.
Both of
You
these?
need a motion to accept public water alligator season and
Okay.
and
All right.
private.
That's what I was thinking. All right, so let's have a motion for that.
So moved.
That's Wagner.
Second, Billy.
That's Billy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right, so that motion carries. So that takes care of our alligator and all that, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so now we have migratory birds. Is that what we're going to do?
Yes. Houston Haven.
All right, Sam, I didn't write down when we were making the adjustments. We were going so fast. Added to the agenda. Where are we adding some of that? Just as it.
Okay.
We're at that point.
After migratory bird presentation, we'll have Adam Butler give us a turkey season update and state turkey population study that we're doing.
Okay.
And then behind that would be law enforcement update with law enforcement activities over the last month and discuss lands affected by floodwaters.
Okay. All righty. With that, let's move forward. Okie doke.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have before you today our recommendations for migratory game bird seasons for the upcoming 2020-21 season. And Mr. Chairman, at your pleasure, we can go through these line by line, or we can go straight to any questions or edits that anyone may have.
Well, we got all this in advance. I think we ought to, do we have any questions? I don't see any reason to go through it line by line.
I think we need to cover primarily the dates, season dates for waterfowl and season dates for dove.
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
All right, so let's move to that.
Okay, for the dove season recommendations, on the north zone, we have the typical Labor Day weekend opener of Saturday, September 5th. And that first season segment would run through October 10th. The second season segment would pick up October 24th and go through November 21st. And then the final season segment would start December 23rd and go to January 16th.
This is Robert. I've had several comments about if it would be possible interest in taking a week off of the January season on doves and add it right after October 10th. It might be a good thing to get public comment on that and see what everybody in Mississippi thinks. You feel like that we don't get the hunters out, it would be more apt to go if that week was added to October 10th rather than at the end of the season. I'll throw that out there.
Okay.
So would Houston, when you talk about the number of days, are you requesting them, Mr. Commissioner Taylor? Are you requesting 10 days, 7 days? Do you have any idea how many days?
I'm not sure how the days fall, but obviously probably 7. I would say, without actually looking at the calendar, the 7 days, as long as you're gaining weekends, getting as many weekends in there as possible.
Yes, sir. So moving 7 days off the end of that north zone third segment would not lose us any weekends there. It would still extend from October 11th through the 17th, if I understand you correctly.
That's correct.
Yes, sir. So that is doable. We just have to be sure that any days that we move are attached to an existing season segment, so we don't get outside of federal frameworks. But that is doable.
Absolutely.
So here's
that
like
motion.
18th is a Sunday. Will that work? 11th through the 18th.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll move eight days then off of that.
12, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It is actually only, yeah, you're right.
Right now it'd be the 11th, which is a Sunday, and then you'll change it to the 18th, which is a Sunday.
Does that kill too many days in January?
No.
Okay. We can
Try
try that. Let's put it out there for public comment and see what people say about it.
Okay. If, Mr. Chairman,
Motion of that?
need a motion.
I'll make
Okay.
that.
Okay, so we have it from Taylor. We have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, who was that, Cosser? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. One neck.
Okay, for the South Zone dove season, we had same opener, Labor Day weekend, September 5th, running that first segment through September 20th. The second segment would be October 10th through November 8th. And then the final segment would be December 19th through January 31st.
I think that's a good season and correct splits for the South Zone. You okay with Commissioner Wagner?
I'm okay with that.
All right, what you want to do?
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, a second.
Second.
All right, all vote.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I believe you wanted to move to the duck season recommendation next.
All right, move forward.
Okay, our recommendation, because the calendar falls back to our previous traditional season setup of the last Sunday in January being on January 31st, we went with a more traditional recommendation for the waterfowl for the duck season, which would begin November 27th, go through November 29th. The second segment of the season would be December 4th through the 6th. And then we would pick back up December 9th and go through January 31st.
So that opening season is Thanksgiving weekend?
Yes, sir. It would open the day after Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Okay, so moved. I'll go for
Now,
that.
does that, okay, that doesn't cover, we're going to talk about the youth and veteran after that, correct?
Okay, yes, sir.
I move we accept those dates.
All right.
Second.
Okay, that's Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, for our proposed youth, veteran, and active military waterfowl hunting days, we had the Saturday before the regular duck season opener, which would be November 21st, and then the Saturday following the ending of the regular duck season, which would be February 6th.
February 6th is on a Saturday, right?
That's right.
Is it possible, again, had some comments about taking the November 21st date and moving it to the 7th, so you'd have a 2-day youth and veteran season instead of one on each end. Y'all got any comments on that? They want to have a 2-day experience at the duck camp and go 2 days in a row instead of going one in the beginning, one in the end.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, they'll give them 2 days at the end where they could, once they have their youth or whatever veterans, they could go and stay somewhere.
It makes sense to have a whole weekend rather than independent days.
Yeah. Plus, arguably, there's more waterfowl in February than there are in November.
That's right.
Yep, true.
Any more comments?
I move that we have the 2 days in February.
That was Wagner. Have a second?
Second.
That's Taylor. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Mr. Chairman, are there any other questions about any of the other seasons that we need to go over?
I don't have any, commissioners. Okay. Houston, thank you very much.
Houston, one question on the early blue-winged teal season. Is that a federal framework that we have?
It is. We always, there's a 16-day maximum season, which those days have to be consecutive, which basically allows you to start on a weekend and end on a weekend. You get 3 weekends out of it. And so our typical approach has been to maximize the number of weekends and put that season as late in September as possible.
Yeah, it looks like you've done a good job there. That's probably the best you can do.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving forward. We got Turkey, Adam?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Right ahead. Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Great. I'm calling in, so not in the office, but appreciate the opportunity to update you gentlemen on turkey season so far this year. Game check as of right this moment, 9,786 turkeys have been reported, which amazingly is less than 100 birds off from this same date last year. So the total statewide harvest is running within 1% of same date last year. So that's pretty surprising to me. To date, 7,107 unique users have registered a harvest. That compares to about 7,600 unique users at the same point last year. So again, very close to last year's number. As of yesterday, 70% of users have reported 1 bird, 25% 2 birds, and 5% 3 birds. And at the statewide level, the top 5 counties for turkey harvest this year are Lafayette, Attala, Copiah, Marshall, and Adams in that order. So that's where we're at with game check stats as of today. I do want to take a moment to update you on WMA because because of the WMA app, we have the ability now to see kind of real-time numbers from that. And it's probably worth noting because given that so many people are not working or have working from home or have schedules that are otherwise kind of outside the norm, there is a perception out there that a lot more people are taking advantage of that time to get outdoors and turkey hunting. So I just wanted to share a few numbers with you on that. When we're looking at man days on WMAs, and again, keep in mind this is the first year with the app, so it's not necessarily apples to apples how we've collected this data, but just looking at the raw numbers, man days on our wildlife management areas as of last week were up 27% from the same point last year. Harvest on WMAs was up 60% from the same time last year. So both big numbers, big increases. To put that in a little bit more context, if you compare those numbers to the 10-year average, the total man days are actually fairly close to what they would be looking at the long-term average. Harvest is up about 25% from where it would be at the same point in the season long-term average. But again, just wanted to give some context that there's a perception out there amongst hunters and our staff and others that more people are taking advantage in turkey hunting, and the numbers do bear that out to some degree. At this point, we're not overly concerned with it. If you look at the numbers individually by WMA, none of the individual WMAs are just eye-poppingly big as compared to last year. But if you add all of that up across the whole entire WMA system, like I said, it's a 27% increase in user pressure from last year and a 60% increase in harvest from last year. Any questions on any of that?
What's your, Adam, what's your highest number per man day harvest on WMAs, per WMA?
As of last week, it was Chickasaw WMA, which also happened to be, if I recall from memory, the WMA that had the highest harvest last year. It was also running the most this year.
Okay.
So at the statewide level, though, the game check numbers are not that much different at all from where they were at the same point last year. So it does seem that there's more pressure on public lands, perhaps, but that doesn't bear out at the statewide level. One other update I wanted to give to you gentlemen. As you've heard in the past, there's a lot of angst out there about turkey populations, both in Mississippi and around the southeast. I wanted to kind of lay out what our plan moving forward on that is. If you'll recall, a group came and spoke to the commission previously about their concerns for turkey season, particularly in the south part of the state, and we've taken that very seriously. So they proposed a number of different thoughts on season changes, and I wanted to let you know kind of where we're going with that. As a turkey hunter myself, I take the notion of cutting opportunity very seriously. I don't want to go down that road if we don't, very thoroughly believe it's the right thing to do. And so we're proposing to start a new research project in conjunction with Mississippi State that's going to take the existing data we have and build a harvest model to be able to predict what different season framework changes would have. For example, we don't know if reducing the bag limit would be more impactful than reducing season length, or whether those things actually would make much of a difference at all. And so rather than recommending changes based on opinion, we want to have good sound science backing our decision. And so we will be entering into a research project with Mississippi State that will hopefully give us some really solid numbers and science behind any sort of recommendations therein. As a part of that, in conjunction with that, before all this business with the coronavirus started, I was working with our outreach coordinator, Michelle Carter, to put together a series of focal group meetings around the state. We wanted to gather together groups of hunters and spend some time with them, asking specific questions about their thoughts on different things as it relates to turkey populations and season frameworks and bag limits and all that sort of thing. And Michelle was very, very excited about that opportunity to do that. And obviously, we were planning on doing a series of those throughout turkey season to sort of hit people when interest in turkey is at its peak. And unfortunately, we've had to table those for now. And the plan had been to take kind of what the feedback we're getting from the public in those series of focal group meetings, and sometime in the latter part of May, have a turkey summit similar to the waterfowl summit, where you would have, obviously yourselves, the commissioners, key legislators, representatives of the hunting products industry, other sister agencies that impact land use, and have a big roundtable discussion of where we're at with turkeys and where we're going, and let all of that sort of help be the guide, and then also have the science from the research that we're going to do with Mississippi State to really come up with recommendations down the road that are best for everyone. So that's where we're at with that. Again, given where we're the current situation with shelter in place, we had to table the focal group meetings, but we do plan to take those up again whenever the world goes back to normal.
Adam, question for you. This is Billy Munger. Is your study with Mississippi State, will it be focused on South Mississippi, or will it be geographically all
No,
over the
it would be that's a good question, and that's really going to be, I think, something we're going to be proud of. It will be applicable to everywhere. So other states would be able to look at what we come up with and use it. It would essentially be taking data that we already have. There's already been a lot of work done with turkeys here in Mississippi and around the South, and it would be using that to essentially build a computer simulation where you could change the season framework parameters and see what effect those would be expected to have going forward. Also just wanted to mention, because I know the state chapter of the National Wild Turkey Federation has done a good job and really put a lot of emphasis, and it's important to them to build a relationship with the commission. They have already stepped up to offer funding in a pretty big way for that project. So they're going to be a big partner in it going forward.
That's good.
That's great. Thank you.
Really good.
Good report. Good update, Adam. Thank you.
Hey, Adam, this is Bill Coster. Could you give me
Yes,
those
sir.
five top counties again?
Let me click over. They are Lafayette, Atala, Copiah, Marshall, and Adams. And Lafayette and Marshall.
All over the state.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, the statewide total harvest is almost on the nose to where it was last year, but the distribution of the harvest is a little bit different. Lafayette and Marshall were both really strong counties last year, and they seem to be again this year. But interestingly, several of the southwestern counties that weren't necessarily big contributors to the harvest last year have really bumped up. Adams, Franklin, Amite, Wilkinson are all doing really well this year and weren't necessarily in those top tier counties last year.
Well, it killed 4 on my place, and we reported all 4 of them.
Very good. That's all I have, gentlemen, if you don't have any other questions.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Adam. Okay, law enforcement. Is that right, Sam?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Let's have law enforcement.
Thank you, gentlemen. Over the weekend, we had 12 fatalities, 113 injuries in storms across the state. Officers responded to most of these. We were very fortunate that we were not 2 or 3 days after these storms still looking for individuals. We were, I think most everybody was accounted for during the night, so that lessened the impact somewhat on us responding to this. We're still helping with some counties, a little bit of traffic control, things like that. We assisted Lawrence County after you know that they lost a deputy and the court clerk in a house there. Also in Covington County, we assisted there. These counties were Carroll, Clark, Covington, Grenada, Jasper. Jefferson Davis had the most fatalities with 4. Jones, Lawrence, Panola, Sharkey, Sunflower, and Walthall. Currently, we're still, officers are still working these lakes, reservoirs, waterways. We're making sure that individuals are keeping safe distance from one another. We have not had any problems. There's been a couple of locations where people were still trying to party on sandbars. We've dealt with those, and it seems as though a lot of people are fishing and a lot of people are hunting, and we're not having many issues from those. Currently, we're still looking at a lot of flood water on the Mississippi River. Vicksburg is cresting near 50.4 today. That's several tenths above what they anticipated. It was actually not supposed to go over 50. It's continued to go up. It has crested at Arkansas City at 42.7. I'm sorry, at 43.5 on the 10th. Greenville crested at 54.5 on the 9th. And Vicksburg is due to crest now. Also, Natchez looks like it will crest at 57.5. The Backwater landsides, this is yesterday's gauge, 96.29, and Riverside is 98.82. Looks like it's predicted to crest around 96.5. The last report shows that the gates should open sometime this weekend, and they're predicting that the Mississippi River, with it cresting today, that it could drop to 46 feet in 10 days. So that's a significant drop. We just need it to continue to drop and that water to get on out of the backwater.
Good reports.
Any questions or issues that the commissioners might have?
Have we had any problem with turkey hunters that are violating the law?
Yes, sir. We have. We're continuing to work some cases that we're having on that. Of course, social media cases, complaints that we get in, officers have been working those. We've had a couple of cases on some management areas where there have been too many birds taken, and those are some cases, active cases that we're working on right now. We also had, we just had a case where some individuals posted 3 birds on social media. Of course, we checked, those birds had not been reported, and we, in working the investigation on it, determined it got into no license issues and some other things, also trespassing. So yes, sir, we're actively working those.
What idiots putting that stuff out there on social media? Oh. Just idiots.
Colonel Adcock, what about the report we had about the people that killed 100 turkeys down in southwest Mississippi? What's the latest on that?
Arrests have been made, and that is still a very active case going on. There's going to be some federal charges with that, also some other charges, or some other individuals will more than likely be brought into those.
All right. Anybody? Comments, questions, Chief? All right. Well, thank you so much. That's a good report, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Y'all stay at home.
Right. All right, Sam.
Anything else, but that's the final agenda. That's the finish of the agenda. And we have no need, and I don't know how we would do it anyway, for executive session.
All right. So next meeting, May 14th, is scheduled for headquarters there in Jackson, if we'll be able to make that or not. But May 14th is the next meeting.
Correct.
What time of day?
10 a.m. will be, well, we have this fallen officer schedule for that, Sam. I guess that's sort of unknown at the moment, right?
That's unknown at the moment. We're scheduled to come in on Wednesday night and then be here for the fallen officers memorial service, if we have it, which would be at 10, and then educational session by commission at 1, and a business session at 2 on the next day.
So Sam, I suppose we're going to get through the next couple of weeks and hopefully know something by then or whatever, right?
Correct. We'll be in touch with you.
Yeah. All right. No need for an executive session. That really concludes our meeting. Does anyone have any final comments before we gavel out?
Just, I'd say accolades to the IT staff to get this bunch of rednecks all on one Zoom.
That's right. Exactly right. Right.
Speak for yourself, Taylor.
All but one, and it wasn't their fault.
And also helping guide some of us that are not so, that are IT challenged. Let me say that. All right, y'all. Well, look, good meeting.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, on your new newspaper. Yes.
Yeah, we were very sad to see our 104-year-old newspaper go out of business. And of course, I was not dying to get back into the newspaper business, but here we go. You know, so our town will continue to have a newspaper in the challenging times today in the printed word, you know. So
you're a glutton for punishment.
No doubt. And the town leaders came to me, and I'm a sucker to be talked into anything, I guess, too. All righty. Well, look, with that, I will gavel us out, and somebody needs to make a motion that we've ended the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I know we're adjourned.
Wagner, and then Kosser second. All in favor?
Stay safe.
I'll stay safe.
Everybody stay safe.
All right. Thank you all very much. This concludes the meeting. April meeting. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.